So we'll do on Testament Aleph by the Mishnah. That's what we're up to. So the Mishnah says like this: Beis Shammai Oimrim. So we're still talking about a person wants to get some pigeons for his Yom Tov meal. So before he can take the pigeons for his Yom Tov meal, he has to do something from before Yom Tov. Beis Shammai Oimrim. Beis Shammai say, Lo yitel, you shall not take the pigeons or the birds, elo imkein ne'ena mi ba'od yom, unless you shook, you went up before Yom Tov. Mi ba'od yom means while it's still daytime, and you shook the nest. That means you did an action to prepare that you were going to use the birds over there. So you have to prepare it in a way, a physical act of going up to the uh, nest and shaking it. And then you can take. That's the opinion of Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel Omrim, on the other hand, Beis Hillel disagree. And they say, Oimed ve'omer. He just stands on the ground and he says, you don't have to climb no ladders, you don't have to shake anything. You just stand up and say, again, Rashi says, Omer v'omer mibayid yom, before Yom Tov, you say, Zeh v'zeh ani noitel. This one and this one, you don't need to shake them. You just say, these are the ones I want to take. Now, I guess the person can recognize which of the birds, he knows which birds he has in there. So he can recognize them, but he has to. Yeah, what's it? Yeah, hello, hello. That was the maintenance guy. I'm worried why he's calling me. Anyways, okay. Uh he says he has to specify which of the birds that he's going to do, but he doesn't have to do an act. Just saying, I'm going to take these birds, that's considered prepared, and then he can use them for Shabbos. Otherwise, they'd be muktzah. Muktzah means they're in the nest. We don't expect that you're going to want to use them. So that's why you need to, according to Beis Shammai, you need to physically shake them. And according to Beis Hillel, it's enough for you to stand and say, before Yom Tov, I'm going to take these, and then you can go ahead and take them. That's the
Wait,
Mishnah.
wait, so he needs to
Gemara.
shake it before Yentif?
Yes, because that's an action that you're really going to take it, as we're going to see, because otherwise we're afraid that if you're just going to say, according to Beis Shammai, going to change your mind. We'll see. The Gemara will explain which kind of birds we're talking about over here.
Is
Amar,
this
yeah,
connected to Shiloh Hakan sending out the mother bird? Well, I mean,
totally different.
that's what I would have
No,
thought,
no,
but
totally different.
because
It has nothing to do with that.
so what does shaking indicate?
That is
How does
preparing.
that?
You're preparing, and you're basically saying, "I'm going to use these birds on Yontif." So then, when you take them on Yontif, they're not muktzah because you prepared them.
So it's just making a declaration, sort of.
Exactly. And you're
Right.
actually preparing. And otherwise, on Yom Tov, you're not allowed to use it because you didn't have in mind before Yom Tov to use it. So here we're going to have an explanation. What we're talking about over here. Apparently, the way they used to raise pigeons, they used to have the first set of pigeons that were born, uh, they never removed them. They didn't use them. They kept them to keep company to their mother. Their first, the one who was given birth to them, the one who laid the eggs, and so the mother shouldn't be alone. So they never removed that first Recha Rishona. So basically, it means that there's a big chance that you may not end up moving or using those birds because the usual way, the way it worked is that the first birds that were there were actually left over there. Nobody used them. So in order to undo the muktzah from them that they're not going to be used, Beis Shammai requires you to do an actually act, and Beis Hillel says speaking is enough. But if you talk about any other uh, birds of the pigeons in the nest, then everybody will agree that you could just prepare them and say, I'm going to take these birds. You don't need to shake them, only because they're the first layer. That's how he explains that. Omar Rav Chanan bar Ami, so Rav Chanan bar Ami says, Machloikes bibricho rishona. The disagreement whether you need to physically shake them or you can just say is the argument is only when we're talking about like the first pigeons that the first that's called the bricha rishona. And Rashi says bricha rishona says Rashi that the derech megadli yevonim, the way of those who raise pigeon, lo niach bricha rishona shel kol shana liyos tzavas limo, to leave that first brecha, the firstborn. Every year, the firstborn that comes that year, they leave it to be a company for the mother so that the mother is not alone. So they never take away those birds, they leave those birds there. Besides the Shiluch HaKan that you mentioned before, that you can't take away the children while their mother is there. But we're talking about Chalal, they don't take away those, they leave those first brecha, they leave it for the mother over there to be company. So in that case, the Beis Shammai Sabri, Beis Shammai hold Gazrina. Gazrina means we worry that you might not, if you just say, you might change your mind. And you're not going to really, because it's unusual. People want to keep the birds there. So if only thing what you did is say, that's not good enough because you might change your mind. And then you ended up moving the birds, which are muktzah. Let's look inside Rashi. V'shamai sover gazrinon, gazrinon, kishoki luhu lemochav. When he does take them on the next day, he said, I'm going to take them. And then he goes and take them. Osili amluchi, he might come and change his mind. He's going to have pity on them to use them for his meal because he wants to keep them for the mother bird over there that she should have her company. And that would be moving the birds unnecessarily because if you change your mind and you're not going to shech them, so that means that you were metalcal, you were moving something unnecessarily. However, so what does it help if you move it? If you're going to change your mind, why don't we worry too? How is that going to help? So Rashi explains, Umishanina umishmash bahem. Once he moved and he touched them, mibayid yom lishchita, and he was going to shech them. He's touching them because he wants to shech them. V'loichas alayhu, and he did not have pity on them. In other words, that he's going to shech them, and he actually went as far as holding on to them. Sulei chashinan dechayis. We're not going to be worried anymore that you're gonna take them the next day and you're gonna handle them, and then you're going to feel bad. Then you're gonna return them, and you end up carrying. No, we're not gonna worry that. If you touch them and you're gonna be for the shechita, that's a very clear sign that you're ready to shech them, and you're gonna take them and you're gonna go through with it. The Beis Shammai is sabri, but if it's the Brecha Rishonim and you did not actually touch them, you're just gonna say, prepare them, Gazrinon Dilma Asi Le Ameluchi. We decree, we worry that you might come to change your mind. Ubeis Hillel sabri, but on the other hand, Beis Hillel hold that Loi Gazrinon, that we're not worried. If you decided that you're going to take them and you set it out, we don't have to worry. So this is where we have a disagreement, says Rav Chona Barami. Avol bibrecha shniya, but when we talk about this second birth, the second, divrei hakel, according to all opinions, it would be sufficient according to all opinions, also according to Beis Shammai. You don't need to move it. If you say zeh v'zeh ani noitel, that should be sagia. That should be a point. Okay. So this is uh, one idea that the Gemara shares. But the Gemara asks now on the particular language that Beis Hillel said. According to Beis Hillel, the way he said it, now Beis Shammai would hold the same way too. The way to prepare these birds is not just by saying, I'm going to take from this nest, but you have to specifically say, this one and this one I'm taking. You have to say the exact birds that you're taking. And the Gemara wants to know, why isn't it sufficient for you just to say, I'm going to take from this nest? Why do you have to specify the exact birds? So what will happen?
And how can you tell? Don't they all look the same?
Well, so that's what I said before. Apparently, he has tags on them, or he can tell them apart. He can tell them apart. Because he's not saying, I'm taking from this nest. So what happens? Here, we come to the whole idea, the discussion of Breira. Breira means, so let's say he said, I'm going to take from this nest, but we don't know which one of those nests he's going to take. And then the next day, when it comes Yontif, he grabs two pigeons, right? And he shechts them. Are these the same pigeons that he had in mind when he prepared them? Did he prepare these pigeons? But if he didn't prepare these pigeons, then how come he's allowed to handle them? It's muktzah. But you're saying that he did prepare them, right? And that's why he has to say zeh v'zeh, because if he would just say that I'm taking from here, he didn't prepare those particular ones. And if he take two of them, shall we say, now we know which is even though he didn't specify, but after the fact, it becomes known to us retrospectively that these were the birds that he had in mind. He didn't know, he didn't say it, but it's still a preparation for those birds. Let's look at the Gemara. Frag the Gemara, Ubeis Hillel, according to Beis Hillel, Lama le lemeimer zev ani noitel. Why does he have to say this and this I'm taking? Lema mikan ani noita lemocha. Let him just say, from here, from this nest, I'll take the next day, without having to tell you exactly which the birds are. And what is your argument going to be? If he's not going to tell you which the birds are, then he's not going to let it take anything because maybe those are not the birds that he prepared. That would mean that he doesn't hold Breda. That means that he doesn't say, well, now we know retroactively which is the one. In other words, after you choose, we know, after you take the birds, we know when you said that you're going to take them, these were the birds that you meant, even though at the time we didn't know it, but now we know it retroactively. So maybe you're going to say the reason why he has to say the specific birds, he can't just say, I'm going to take from there, because if he just says takes from there, it'll be muktzah. We're not going to say, and they won't be able to use this bird. The chi if you're going to say, Beis Hillel leis lahu breiro, he doesn't go by has been uh, retroactively chosen. In other words, the birds you choose are retroactively the ones that you prepared. Okay, even though when you choose them, then we say, well, that's the we didn't know which one you're going to choose, but once you chose them, we're saying those are the ones. We found out now which are the ones that you prepared. When you said I'm going to take from this nest, we don't know yet. At that time, we don't know. But as soon as you take two birds, we say, well, those are the birds that you prepared before. Now, maybe Beis Hillel doesn't think that we say that. That's the Gemara's contention here. And therefore, you're not going to be allowed to take those birds because it's moktzah. We're not going to say less lubreder. And therefore, when he takes it the next day, Dilmo loy hani azmin. Maybe these are not the one he prepared. He said the nest. We don't know which ones. V'uloi huzman as kulam elokadeitzarka. Rashi Bavorans here it questions us. Why can't we say, okay, he prepared the entire nest? So he prepared it. We don't have to know which one. Uh, so why do we have to say Breda over here? Because had he said, I want to take everything in the nest, then we don't have to, then everything is prepared because he's going to use them all. But in this case, he doesn't want to use them all. So if we don't say Breda, then you can't use it because we don't know which one you prepared. So maybe Beis Hillel doesn't hold Breda, and that's why he has to say that you need to say this and this bird I'm going to use. Can't just say I'm from the nest and whatever's going to come out tomorrow, that's the one I meant. But the Gemara says no. What not? But didn't we learn in a Mishnah? Hameis bebayis. You have a deceased in a home. Now there's a special law about the place, the door, which the mace is taken out of the house to carry him to the cemetery. So here you have a home that has many doorways. And Rashi says, "V'lo psochim harbo." It has many doorways, and we don't know where the mace is going to go through which door. And all these doors are equal. Kulam psuchim or kulam zgurim. They're either all open or all closed. In other words, if some are closed and some are open, we know he's going to go through the open ones. But in this case, you have many doors, and we're not sure which is going to be the mace going out from where. Which of the doors? What difference does it make? Because there will be a tuma through the door in which he goes, where the mace goes. Let's look inside. So the din is kulam tameim. We don't know, so they're all tamei because every door we have a question. Maybe the mace is going to go through that door. Zok Rashi like this. So Rashi first tells us the halacha. Kol kelim hamunochim becholol hapsochim tachas oivrei hatikra shel Pesach. Any vessels that are within the hollow of the entrance, so you have an entranceway, if they are under the beam, and in other words, the beam is over them, the thickness of the beam, so there's a beam on the top and there's a doorway in the bottom underneath it. So if there's vessels over there, they're tameh. Now, normally we know anything which is under one roof with the mace becomes tameh. But here we're talking about that's not under the same roof with the mace. She'ein tarchas hagag hamahil al hameis, even though he's not under the roof, which is over a tent over the mace. In that case, there would be no issue. Of course, it would be tamei if the mace shares an oil, a top together with the kalim would be tamei. But the entrance of the house is not part of where the mace is. It's still the kalim that are under there will become tamei. Why? Shegozru chachomim tumo al mokim shu derech yitzias hatumo. The sages, the rabbis, were decreed tuma on the place which is the path in which the tuma goes out. Shesoifei lotzis derech sham. In the end, he's going to go through. It's not on the same. It doesn't share a roof with the mace, but the Chachamim said that place is tamei because the mace is going to go through there, so it's presently tamei. Any kalim, even before the mace goes through there, it's still going to be tamei. In our case, because they're all open, they're all closed. Which pathway he's going to take out the mace. Hilchach kulam tameim, therefore they're all tamei. All the entrances, all the pathways are tamei because the we don't know where, and the entranceway becomes tamei. Now, what happens? They were all closed, and now niftach echad mehem. One of the doors is opened up, and that's la'achar mitzvahs hameis. The mace has already died. And we said that everything became tamei. But now it changed everything. One of them opened up. So, Bain Kalim de Meikora and Bain Kalim de Lebesof, Hamavoin Lo Machutz. Whether there were Kalim that were there before, when there was the Suffolk Tumah, we didn't know where it's going to go through. Main Kalim, whether it's safe at the end, after you opened it up, Hamavoy Lemachutz, I'll all be Tomei. Because it's the entrance that the exit, which the mace is going to take, it opened up. But the Kulam, all of the vessels of the other doors that you're going to bring now, maybe we'll see. Maybe the vessels that were there from before already became Tomei before we knew where he's going out. And that status is not going to change. But that's what Rashi says, V'kulam tahirim, l'divrei hakoil mukmin lo. So this is going to go according to all opinions. In other words, we're not going to talk about the kalim that were there till then, which there is a debate about, but here we're talking about new kalim that you bring. The moidu hakoil mikanul haba, that everybody agrees from here and on that it's not going to become tummy anymore. Once you have an entranceway, an exit way where the mace is going to go, all the others, if you put kalim there now, they're not going to become tummy because you know which direction, which door the mace is going to use. The Vadai Bahu, the Niftach Mapiklei. For sure, in the one that opened up, that's the one that you're going to take it out. The one that... So that's when you actually physical one opened up. What happens if you didn't physically open up, but you just had a mind? If he's considering to take it out through one door without opening that door, or even bachaloin, take him out through a window. Sheyesh boy arba al arba, which has 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, and why 4 tfachim? Zokt Rashi bekach shi aruhu sheiro yiloy tzois mesim. That's the way they estimated that a hole, which is 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, is enough space to take out a mace. Matzelas hakol hapshachim kulam. So you don't need to actually open up a door. That would save and make all the doors, just like when it opened up, all the other doors are no longer metame. That thought also helps you that all the doors are not tame anymore. Matzelas hakol hapshachim militame ki'ilu niftach, as if it was opened up. So when does this help? So before we talked about Amez Babayis, but here, when can it help? Beishamai Emrim. Beishamai say, when does it help if you're thinking to take him out? Shechoshav lohoitziyai ad shelayomus hames. This thought that you thought to take him out through a door, through a window, that is before he died. And then it would save all the other doors. But if he already died, then it's not going to help. Beis Hillel say, Af mishayomus hameis, that even after the mace died, and you think you're going to take him out one way, that is sufficient to make all the other ones toher. Rashi, Af mishayomus hameis. Because Salka daitoch, the Gemara thinks now, the Bibreira Pligi, that what's the Machloikis Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is about Breira. And what are we talking about? Ubikelim Shahoya Bohem Bein Misa Lemachshava. And we're talking about the Kalim that was in the doorways after his death, and and his thought to take it out, what happens? What's the status with those kelim that are under the doors? Beis Shammai Sabri, Beis Shammai hold, Loi Amrinon Huvror de Mikore Daitoloch. That uh, now that we see that he is taking it out in a certain place, so we're not going to say that okay, this was his mind in the to begin with. But lo yordo hatumo l'sharab sochin, and the tuma never went down to the other entrances way because now we see that he had an exit that he was going to use. Ubeis Hillel Saber and Beis Hillel hold. Huvra, that now he's been figured out.
Can I just clarify? So the connection between the bird and the mace is if is a question of Brera because he whether or not he
You
designated
say Breda
the
or not,
bird or designated the door beforehand.
whether it helps for later on.
Okay.
So I'm
That's what
gonna
they're trying to
we're gonna
prove.
get back to this. One second. We're just trying to figure out right now uh, what exactly the machlokes b'sham b'silir. So Rashi's saying, "Well, my disalka daito hashto," the what we're thinking now, sviralon, we hold the beniftach echad mehem nami havi pligi that this when one of them is opened up, one door opens up. There's also a machloikis between Bisham and Hillel, Bekalim de Meikora, about the vessel that before. So that according to when you open up a door, what happens to the vessel that was there before? We say that it wasn't going to go through that door. Utayrim the katana le'il, and when he said before Utayrim, the divrei hakoil bekalim de bekanul haba. That when it says Bekulam Toirim, Utairim the Kotan Leil Divre HaKoil, the Kalim the Bekanul Haba. Because he says that they're only arguing that Bekulam Toirim because about the Kalim that were there before, there would be a machloikis whether we say Breda or not. And the Gemara answers, we're going to go back a second. Oit Maralo, Amarabe. But we already learned about this, that Rabbi says, we're only discussing about making the entrances, the kelim under there, from here and on, not for before. So the Gemara's kashi is that Beis Hillel seems to say that we do go by Brera, and that's why he allows even the kelim that are presently under the door. Because we're saying once it opened up, we're showing that that was the entrance. So now it was nizbar. But Rabbah, he says, already said about it that it's only to be metayed the psachim mekanul habo, but not what's tama is tama. Itmar Allah. Vafilu beisil less lo huvrer. Even beisil doesn't say with now it has been verified before. Ve'ein mitarim elo kelim delibisaf. We're only going to say the kelim that you bring afterwards. The la'achar machshava, after machshava. Avol rishonim tmeim. The rishon will be tmeim. Why? Because at the time we didn't know. Ubeis Shammai metamin afas achronim. And he's going to say, even those you bring down later are going to be tome. Why? Because Sabri, they hold Mishiyordo Tumo Lepsochim Lifnei Machshove Misames, that once the Tumo descended to those entrances before Machshove, when the mess dies, Shuvein Oilameh Alei De Maisa. It's not going to leave that only through an action. Kigoy Niftach, that you opened up. Um, Ubeniftach echad mehem. So over there, like pligi midi, because according to everybody, that's not going to be tame because there's another exit. And therefore we say mekano lahabo ein lemafreeloi. We're going to have to go through this, I guess, because Rav Omar, let me say, lo'ilon lemafreya. Lo'ilon lemafreya, nami mitarin beisilo. If you open the door later, or you think about opening a window or a door, it helps for before. The Isla Breda, even though it wasn't open then, but he goes by Breda. But Vahocha b'masnisin hainu taima. So what's the reason? Why does it need to say specifically, I'm taking these pigeons? Dilma l'mochor metaltel, because maybe the next day he's going to move the hashmenim, and he's going to check the fatter ones, the better ones, and he's going to leave the one that he wanted to take, the other one. He'll take the other one. So that's moving what he doesn't move or didn't prepare. Because he only wanted what he needed. That's why he says, I'm taking this one and this one. Hani mili de. Then he has to take those, exactly those. We worry about, yes, he's going to say those is the one that he prepared. Because tomorrow, he's not just going to take them. He's going to move them. And then he's going to let them go. So, and he sees that there's better ones, and he's going to take the other ones. So it turns out When he moved it l'chatchila, he moved what he didn't prepare. Why? Because he didn't have in mind only what he needs. And therefore, he didn't have in mind to put these away and take the other ones. So that's why he says Zevzan Etel. Ulamachar al korchei hani mili dishakel. These are the ones that he takes. And the time
So what if he meets someone at shul, says, bring someone
huh?
else home for lunch on what if he meets someone else at shul, brings them home for lunch, then he says, I designated these two
He
pigeons
can't. He
and I
can't. He
wanted
can't. He can't. He can't shecht birds that he hadn't
a
in the mind.
third. Okay. So, but according to Hillel, as long as he shook the thing, he could take whatever he wants.
Uh,
Because we
yeah.
don't really know because we don't know what his intention was. If he
Let's
doesn't
go.
declare
Yeah.
his
Let's go
intention,
back in a minute. I want to finish up here. I'm going to go back. V'hocha hainu taimo dilmo metaltel v'shavek metaltel v'shavek. It's not that if you can take once and we can verify, say, well, this is one that you had in mind, that would be okay. But you might move one and then you let it go. Move another one, you let it go. And he's going to be moving something which is not fit to him. Fragt die Gemara, Amret, Ba'omer, Sagir. But Beis Hillel said, just saying, taking this one and that one, that's sufficient. But he doesn't, and Rashi said, Amret, Ba'omer, Barochik, Ve'enem and Anea Sagi, he's not moving it, that's sufficient. So we see that he did not check yesterday the lenient ones and the fatter ones. So we still have to worry about maybe you're going to see that there's fatter ones and you might let it go. And the Gemara says, Hanin mili merev yomtiv. Kloimer. Heiche di yoda merev yomtiv dahani huda azminon. If he knows Erev Yom Tov that those are the one that he prepared, the su bein shen kchushim bein shen shmainim loy shokel achrin, and then it doesn't matter that he prepared the lighter ones and the fatter ones. He's not going to take other ones. Shari yedei shemuktzim hein shaloi zimnon. He knows that they're muktzah because he did not prepare them. Avol b'yom tov, avol b'yom tov kshabol levarerom b'yom tov. Kolemar. He's coming to sort of Yontav. He hasn't sort of a Visoimel Chabadikas Mochor Sheyivdek Eskulam, and he relies on the next day that he's going to check it, then it's awesome. The Zimnim, the Mishtakhi Shmeinim Chushim Shmeinim. Sometimes the fat ones will turn out that they're lean, and the lean ones are fat ones. The Zimnin, the Mishtachin, Shmeinim, Zokt Rashi, Oisom Anidim Shmeinim Lamara Einov, they're trying Chushim B'Mishmushim. When you're going to touch them, you're going to turn out that when you really get to touch them, that they're lean. But Chushim Nitzoin Shmeinim will be fat. Because without limited lo chozile, then he's moving all those that are not fit. Midid lo chazile, kol oisom shetziltlam yoser al tzurkom muktzunei. All those that he moved more than it was necessary. So that's more than he need. That was muktzah. That's why we're afraid. Inami, or Zimnin de Mistachim Kulu Chushim Bishabiglu, Oslamnu Misimchas Yom Tov. Inami Igarsina. Inam Zimnin Mistachim Kulu Chushim. They'll turn out their all week, and then it become a man Simchas Yontif. And he's not going to do Simchas Yontif because he's not going to take the kol zeh alidei shelo birer esmel dvarav, because the day before he didn't sort out his word. Lefikach somach al sheker leimar, so he relied on something false to say, efsher shelo yu shnayim shleisha tovim. Oh, there must be going to be one or two or three good ones. And then they turn out to be, he relied on the non-truth, that it, but when you require him to sort out, then he's not relying only on these. That's why he prepared them. He's going to come and take him, and he's not going to hold back. All right, I'm not feeling so well, and I'm going to end this year now, but we will go back over this piece of Gemara very clearly again, the Mitzvah Hashem, next week on Tuesday. And for the meantime, let me wish you a happy Hanukkah. You can hear I'm barely speaking, so just I got to go rest.
I hope you feel better.
Hopefully the rest of the Hanukkah will be really freilach, not any more incidents, on here and there. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yep.